this talk that you're going to hear right now was presented as 5 tips, but I felt that in light of the recession, you guys deserve a free one, so I'm giving you 6. So there are 6 tips that we're going to cover together today. But the first thing I want to mention is just with reference to what Alfred said about this being a good place to find a mate. For those in the audience who are single, this is the freelancers talk. You're not going to find anyone with any money on this square of carpet, and that's something that I'm going to try very hard to help you to change. Okay, so we're going to do that together now. So who am I? Alfred very kindly introduced me, but here's just a bit more information for you. Copywriter and editor, a speaker, but not really a freelancer. Why? Because I think that it's safer and perhaps more accurate to refer to myself as a small business owner. I get more credibility. People feel like I know what I'm talking about. Freelancing sounds a bit like you sometimes make logos and you sometimes sell jam. And that's not my vibe. I'd like people to think that I'm a specialist, so that's why I refer to myself as a small business owner rather than a freelancer. So again, just some numbers, 350 plus clients, 13 years, 10 plus countries. So if you want to send me anywhere else, we can add to the country number, which is quite low. John Flismer said he's spoken in between 13 and 14 countries. I'm a bit irritated by that. He also makes a lot more money to speak than I do, but that's something I can work on. So the number of freelance workers in the global economy is projected to outpace full-time workers by 2020, according to Forbes. Now that's a really exciting number, but the problem is, if we're not getting paid, it's not so fantastic. Okay, so the number of freelancers is not really relevant. What's relevant is how many freelancers can make a sustainable living from freelancing. How many of them are converting that freelance talent and that gig economy into actual money? Okay? It's all very well to open a freelance business, but unless you and your family are able to live off it in much the same way you would if you had a salary, then again, it's not freelancing, it's doing logos and selling jam. So, step 1. Now, this is targeted not just at the newbie, early freelancer, the entry-level freelancer. This is targeted at you, even if you've been doing this for a super long time. It's a good idea to stop and think about what your niche is, because it may be time to redefine that for yourself. It may be time to change the way you market and brand your offering. It may be time to think about whether what you have is an industry niche, a genre or sort of sector niche, or some combination of the two, and I'll explain them to you now. So there are 3 different kinds of niche, according to the way I think about these things. Industry niche is when you specialize in writing about or working on or creating content for a particular industry, which might be travel, financial services, healthcare, big pharma, the automotive industry, whatever it might be. Okay, so that one's self-explanatory. It's industry or sector specific. Medium niche is when you specialize in writing for a particular channel, broadcast, print, digital, social, PR, marketing. And double niche is when you specialize in doing one of those things for one of those industries. So for example, digital content only for travel, or social media content generation only for financial services or big pharma. Okay? But you can obviously cross your silos. Like with me, I do what I call an industry niche mashup. So I specialize in corporate work predominantly. So I don't do sort of pharmaceutical only. I do sort of corporate business to business, corporate services copywriting across a very small subsection of content. So it's predominantly digital, social, and web. I do very little PR, I do very little print. I do no TV, and I do a tiny little bit of radio. Why I'm telling you this is it really helps to sit down and unpack for yourself where you are and where you want to be. Do you want to continue being a jack of all trades? Is that working for you? Do you feel that you could call yourself a specialist in a particular niche or industry? Why is that important? Because the minute you become a specialist, you become a heavyweight, which means you can charge more. Okay, so I earn more money for the more specialized heavyweight work than I do for the jack of all trades work, because there are fewer people who do it. And that's why I feel that this is valuable, even if you've been doing this for a long time. It helps to sit down and say, what is my industry niche? Do I have a medium niche? Where do they cross-pollinate? And how do I explain that to people who've never used me before? Or how do I explain that to customers and clients who have used me, but I want to cross-sell them on other offerings? A lot of the time, I find that clients don't know that I do another thing. And that's because I've failed at telling them. So they'll use me for a website, but they don't know that they can also call me in to train their team. That's a lost opportunity. So I should be cross-selling my services all the time to my existing client base, which is much cheaper than looking for new clients. I love this one. This is my favorite one. So I'm going to give you 2 methods for calculating your rates. You've got 2 choices. You can either go with the industry, so you find out what the industry norms are given your niche and your medium, or you calculate what you need, which is obviously the less successful way to do it, but that's a way to do it as well. So one of the most valuable assets to me in my sort of rate-setting career over the last 13 years has been SAFREA as an institution, which is the South African Freelancers Association, but also the people within SAFREA and the people that I engage with and talk to and chat to on the SAFREA forum, which we call the Oracle. A bit of a cheesy name, but it really does sum up what that forum does for us. This is how you find out whether your rates are on par, totally off-center. You know, you sort of get a sense of what the norms are. And this is a really good way. SAFREA is a great one for freelancers, but they're editor-specific ones, they're design-specific ones, photographic ones, translation-specific ones, all sorts of different associations and groups of different kinds of creatives. And I really recommend that you join them. They are incredibly cost-effective to join. There's a nominal annual fee of 500 or 600 Rand, whatever the organization is, which is completely tax deductible if you pay freelance provisional tax. And it's really worth it, pays for itself in the first asked and answered question. So I just wanted to put a little nudge in about SAFREA, but I will talk about it again just now. So if you're going to go with method 1 for calculating rates and you're going to go with the industry norm, first you have to join some associations, like SAFREA, obviously. Or if you're not a member of any associations yet, ask your colleagues, put a call out to people who do what you do and say, how's it, Oaks? What are you charging? In the old days, so 4 or 5 years ago, before the gig economy became a thing, freelancers were much more reluctant to share their rates. But I'm finding more and more in the last 18 months, people are much more generous, and there's a lot more openness and transparency in our industry, which means that people are very seldom reluctant to share rates. They'll tell you what they charge, or the nearest facsimile of what they charge. I get emails about this on a weekly basis, people saying, Tiffany, what do you charge, or how do you calculate your rates? And I'm only too happy to tell people, how's it going to take work away from me by telling somebody else what I charge? So ask around, and you'll probably come right. Ask politely, and offer to bribe the person in exchange for the information. So when people offer me a coffee, I'll never take them up on it because I don't have time, but it's a nice gesture, okay? You can source suggested rates. If you're a SAFREA member, you can download the SAFREA rates card. You can get them from all the different associations. Or you can look on websites like Ad Talent, which publishes an annual update of what people are earning in-house doing what you do. And then you just sort of extrapolate that a little bit to a freelancer with less overheads, and you can make it work for you that way. You also need to know what weight you are. Are you a lightweight, medium weight, or heavyweight? So lightweight, they say, is between 1 and 3 years in the industry, or between 1 and 4 years. Heavyweight is, medium weight is 5 to 7, and heavyweight is 8 years plus. So that also will affect how credibly you can charge different rates. My rate goes up by a very small percentage annually, and has for the last 13 years. So 13 years ago, I was earning lightweight rates. But now I'm earning heavyweight rates because there have been 13 years in between. Now, hopefully your growth curve doesn't take 13 years, because you might starve to death between now and then, but that's how long it took me. In fairness, I was quite young when I started. So you then need to consider your niche. So as I said before, if you're very specialized in organic copywriting for SEO, if you're very specialized in high-level financial work, IT work, you can charge more because fewer people do that and very few people do it well. And then you can also say to the client, okay, what's your budget? So I don't like doing this because I like to have the power in deciding what I earn, but this is also a way to get the work you want. So if there's a sexy industry that you are dying to get into, or an amazing client that you've been dying to work for, it doesn't hurt to say to them, I want this work, I don't want to price myself out of the job, what's the money available? And sometimes it's more than you would have charged. So I find that maybe 1 in every 3 times, it's not great. The other 2, it's either on par with what I would have charged or more. It doesn't hurt to ask the client what the budget is. Don't do this all the time, because then you're never in control of what you earn. But every now and then, if it's justified and if you're dying to crack the industry, say to the client, what's the budget for this job? Or you can try something else. And the something else is work out what you want. Okay, so you actually calculate what you need. Now, this is a little bit more risky and obviously completely subjective, but I'm going to go out of my comfort zone now. I'm a freelancer and a writer, so I'm not a maths person, but I'm going to give you some maths just to make it nice and easy for you. So bear with me if I get the numbers wrong. So the first thing to do is to work out in your mind, but on a piece of paper works better, what is the magic number that I need monthly to pay my bills, have disposable income available should I need it, and save a little bit. So it's different for everyone. Work out what your number is. It really helps to know that sum in your mind. Okay, so add together your school fees, your kids' stuff, your petrol, all that stuff that you can't avoid. Add a percentage on for disposable income, and then add a percentage on for saving. You may as well do that because this is a hypothetical exercise. So we pretend we can afford to save. Once you have your monthly number, you call it X. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that your monthly number is 50 grand. Okay? Nice round number. You times your 50 by 12 to get 600,000, and then you divide the 600,000 by 10. Why? Why 10 months? Why not 12 months? Because of December and January, correct. So anyone who's freelanced for more than a year will tell you that everything dies in December. So basically from about the third week in November to sort of the beginning of February, we earn nothing. It's like dead. It's quiet, no one phones, no one emails, there's no work, or there are a million inquiries, everything's urgent, and nothing happens until February. So this happens to me every single year. So you take your magic X, you times it by 12 to get 600,000 in the case of our example, which is 50,000, then you divide by 10, because you're only going to work 10 months of the year, so that gives you 60,000 a month. Then you have to decide, am I working full or part-time? Because obviously, the hour allocation monthly is going to be different. So we work on an average of 21 working days per month for full-time people, or 15 if you're going to be more of a part-time person. So divide your 60 by 15 or 21 working days, your 60,000. Then you need to decide how many hours a day you're going to work. Is it going to be the normal full-time 8 hours a day? Is it going to be 6 hours a day, which is not part-time, it's sort of in between, or is it going to be a 4-hour-a-day story? You then divide that by 4, 6, or 8. And what you're left with is your base hourly rate. Okay, so let me take my example again. Can somebody do this maths? Because I definitely can't. Can you work out 60,000 divided by 21 working days? Like, kudos to somebody who can do this. How much? 2,850. Roughly. 2,857. Nice, Candace. Points for Candace. 2,857. Then can you divide that by 8 hours? 357. So my base hourly rate, if I wanted 60,000 Rand a month, working full-time would need to be a minimum of 357 Rand an hour. Okay. So what you do with this is you take that sum, you think to yourself, do I feel that I could justifiably charge this? Do I feel that my customers, in return for my weight, my niche, my area of specialization, etc., do I think they would pay it? And then you know in your mind that's, even when you negotiate, you never go lower than that rate. That's your base hourly rate, onto which you then add all the extras. Got it? Really simple though. Thank God for your calculator, because I couldn't have done that in my head. Okay, but never forget that as freelancers, we don't just charge for writing time, designing time, development time. You need to be remembering to charge for admin time, because those are hours you could be selling to someone else, right? And I can't tell you how many freelancers say to me, why aren't we earning enough? And I say, well, are you charging for meetings, interviews, time you spend quoting and invoicing, time you spend chatting to people over the phone? Are you charging for research? Are you charging for info gathering? Are you building in some marketing time? So what I do with every single quote is I add in a flat fee based on the size of the job that covers my admin time. And it's very clearly itemized on the quote. It's not hidden away. It's not a secret. If the client asks me to defend it, I can defend it easily. But the fact is that it's there, because I do need time to cover me schlepping to and from the meeting, sitting in the meeting, taking notes, doing research, spending time online, making phone calls, quoting, invoicing, chasing money endlessly. Somebody needs to account for that time, and it shouldn't always be you. Yes. I call it admin, client liaison, and interview time. Because even the time you spend sitting on your bed working is work time. You're not just working when you're producing creative content. You're working when doing anything that leads to income generation for your business. So if I've spent 5 hours reading blog posts on SEO, I can't charge anyone for that time, but that's work. And at least I know that 20 minutes of that time was added to someone's bill somewhere along the line times 10, which covers me. Got it? Now let's talk about the plumber. So you may have heard this one, but I absolutely love it. So I bring it up in every rates calculation discussion. And this is about knowing your value, okay, as a freelancer. So we have a plumber, and he goes out to somebody's house because the pipes are blocked, and there's a problem with the water. And he arrives, he looks at the pipe, he gives it a kick, the water starts running, and he says to the lady of the house, that'll be 450 Rand. And she says, you can't charge me 450 Rand for kicking a pipe. And he says, I'm not charging you for kicking the pipe. I'm charging you 450 Rand for knowing where to kick the pipe. Okay, so you need to be charging for your expertise, not your time. So let me give you another example. Let's say that I'm extremely quick at writing website copy. Well, let's use something else. Let's say radio scripts. Let's say that I do that really fast, which incidentally I don't. It takes me quite long. But let's say that it takes me an hour to write a 30-second radio spot. Because I've been doing this for so long, that hour is relative. It may take somebody less experienced 3 hours at a third of the rate I charge, but we'll land up charging the same. So why should I be, what's the word? Disadvantaged by the fact that I'm faster? I shouldn't. I should be charging for value, not for time. Which is why when I write a radio script, the client has no idea how long it takes me. It could take 20 minutes or 3 hours. I charge a flat rate for that. Because I think radio is quite hard to do, and it's hard to do fast, and it's hard to do well, and so you pay for the value, not for the time. You will over time, though, and this is something that I've learned, you will over time get a sense of how much a website costs when you write it, or how much a brochure costs you to lay out. And then it's less a case of thumb-sucking what you think it's worth, and more a case of, I'm not prepared to do a brochure for less than 5 grand. Or whatever the case may be. So remember when quoting that you are not just billing for time, you are billing for value. And there's nothing wrong with saying to the customer or client, you're not paying me for my time, you're paying me for my insight. At which point he'll probably tell you that he has a teenage son who was very good at design and could probably do it in Paintbox for free, but clients like that we don't want. Right, so being a business owner, remember at the beginning when I showed you the slide on me, freelancer was crossed out and it said that I was a small business owner instead. You need to forget that you're a freelancer. That's just sort of a useful term for tax purposes. Because what you are and what you need to be if you're going to crack it is a business owner. And you need to behave like one. And there's several ways to do this. The first is to look like one, and by this I don't mean clothes. Okay? Inevitably, I will go to a meeting in jeans and tackies once the client knows me well. I only dress up like this when speaking to an audience or when seeing a client for the first time. You do not have to dress up to be taken seriously as a business owner, not anymore. What you do need to do, I am wearing jeans. These are not jeans. What you do need to do, guys, is make sure that you have all of the materials that make you look proper. So you need to have proper invoice templates, proper quote templates. You need to have a contract. You need to have a proper email signature, a business card. So this comes up on SAFREA quite a lot, and it came up recently. Who are my SAFREA members in the audience? Okay, so you guys may have seen one of our members asking, does he need business cards? And I dived in there at a rate of knots and said, yes, you do, for all these reasons, and I listed all these reasons why he needs them, and I'm going to give them to you now for those wondering. So the first is, it takes away some of the awkwardness at the beginning of a first meeting because there's an exchange. You give me mine, I give you yours. There's nothing worse than someone saying, do you have a card? And you say no. Because they give you one and then you stand there feeling like you haven't given anything back. So that's number one. Number two, I still get calls from people that I gave business cards to 13 years ago. And 13 years ago, my cards were shit. They were done at Minuteman Press. They cost me about 55 Rand, and they were horrendous. And I get embarrassed when people phone, but they're still phoning, so who cares? Hi, Tiffany, are you still a copywriter? Yes, I am. Can we talk about work? Okay, so they last. They hang around. Another thing is, Emailing somebody your details after they've met you means that you get lost in the stream of email that has happened since they met you. But a business card's going to hang around in their pocket or in their wallet or in their diary, and at some point they're going to see it again. So it's a much more concrete manifestation of the connection that was made than popping them your details in an email. Some of the other things, you can get quite clever with business cards. So mine are a series of 10, which are the same on one side and different on the other side. So I fan them out in a meeting and I say to the client, choose the one that you think speaks to you, which is a complete party trick, but they love it. So if you're prepared to be a bit creative, you can get a bit wacky. And remember, we are creative, so we should be getting a bit wacky. So those are just some of the reasons to have business cards, but they do make you look like a professional, and I really recommend it, especially considering that, again, it's tax deductible, but also they're not expensive. Just do it. If you're a designer, you have no excuse because you can make them gorgeous. If you're a writer, find a designer friend and swap content for design. So I've been trade exchanging since I started my business. I got my first website for $3,000 and some free copy. Okay, this was a long time ago, but still, it can be done. Look like one. Act like one. Be on time. If you're organizing a virtual meeting with a prospective client or with a client, make sure that 5 minutes or 10 minutes before, you're online, sitting in front of your computer and ready to go. That you have their Skype username, that you know what number you're supposed to phone for the telecon. Don't rock up at the prescribed time and then there's all this SMS back and forth about who's phoning who. It's okay if the client does it. It's not okay if you do it. So be the one who's on time, organized, ready, sorted. Another key, if you're a freelancer, about acting like a business owner is never blame your tech. Never say, my Wi-Fi's down, my computer broke, my hard drive exploded, my car got stuck. The customer doesn't care. You need to just make it work. Don't blame your tech, don't blame your tools. Don't make excuses. We have a mini heckler in the front here. Speak like one. What do I mean by speak like one? Never say, I'm on my way home. You're always on your way to your office. Never say, I'm going on holiday. I'm taking leave. Never say, I'm at my kid's swimming gala. I'm at a meeting. When I go and have my hair done, that's an appointment. Customer doesn't need to know I'm having my hair done. I'm always explaining that I'm on my way back to my office, about to arrive at my office, leaving my office, in between meetings. They don't need to know that it's a spa, grocery shop, and a swimming gala. They don't need to know that. You're not lying. It's an appointment. You've got to speak like one. Leave, office, etc. Even if you're in your slippers, learn to speak like a business owner. You've got to learn to negotiate. You don't have to be brilliant at it. This is not high-level venture capitalism. This is just trying it out. Don't accept the first offer always and pretend, that you have to be grateful. Okay, this is free exchange. So if you want more money, say to the client, is there more room in the budget than that? Or, I need more information. I can't quote you based on nothing. Or, I can't do it by tomorrow. The quality will suffer. I can do it by Monday. Can it wait until Monday? So when I say negotiate, I don't mean negotiate on money. I mean negotiate on everything. Whatever element doesn't work for you, find a happy compromise. So the longer you do this and the more successful you are, you can afford to be a bit of a hard ass with a negotiation. And I was until recently. And then 2017 turned out to be quite a tricky year for everyone, I think. And I had to inject a lot more humility into my negotiations, which means that I'll do a lot more for less. And that's something that you have to sort of go with the ebb and flow of the economy and take that on. So don't get to a point and then not move from that point. I couldn't carry on this year being the hard ass I was last year. It wasn't going to work. So I needed to give a bit more away, have a few more free meetings for clients to get to know me, with the understanding that there would hopefully be more work down the line in return. And you can make these things explicit. There's nothing wrong with asking about money, talking about money. We feel very shameful about money as freelancers. We don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about money stuff. That's why I'm a freelancer. You're never going to hack it if you can't talk about money. You're going to be a poor freelancer, which sucks. Learn to walk away. So remember that base hourly rate of $357. You might be willing to go down to $300, but below $300, at some point you're going to need to be able to say, I'm out. It's no longer worth it. I can't produce quality. I can't turn the copy around so quickly. Whatever it is, you may need to walk away from the money, the time, the client. Some clients you just know are going to be horrible. They're just going to suck. And no matter what you do, they're going to hate it, and they're going to make you redo it 4,000 times. And you can usually tell this quite early on. So sometimes you can walk away. That's all right as well. And you're allowed to say no. I can't produce good work. So I'll give you a great example of this. I have 3 strict rules in terms of the industries I won't work for. So I'm a corporate slut for hire, so I'll pretty much do anything. But there are 3 industries I will not work for: hunting, tobacco, and children's beauty pageants. Won't do it. Not interested in doing it, right? And then, of course, in a fairly tricky month, financially, April, which freelancers will tell you is almost as bad as December, I had an international tobacco company contact me and offer me a shitload of money to write stuff for them. But a shitload of money, like an eye-boggling amount of money. And I dithered with it. I asked my contacts in SAFREA, I asked my colleagues, I asked friends online, I had a million questions, what should I do? I'm very strict about. And somebody said to me, and it really resonated, she said, the quality of what you produce for this client is always going to be undermined by your doubt about taking it on. And I said no, and I walked away. And actually, I never thought about it again. I don't feel sad about it. I don't feel regretful about it. It was a lot of money, but was it worth it? I don't think so. And I was totally upfront with the client. I said, I feel like the ethical conflict that this has caused in me just deciding to take on the work is a sign that it's not for me, but best of luck. And, so you can say no and walk away. And then you need to market like mad all the time, especially in a vacuum. So people who know me will tell you that if a client cancels a meeting, I'll use that time for marketing. If I'm sitting at the hairdresser, I'm writing a blog post. If I'm waiting in the Premier Lounge here in between talks, I'm tweeting and Facebooking. I market in every possible tiny gap of time that exists in my life because I don't have time to do it in my billable hours, but also because you need to market even when you're busy so that when there's a vacuum in work, that marketing pays off because it takes months to pay off. So in 2008, when we experienced the double dip recession, a member of my family was very, very sick. So I took 3 months off. I didn't work in that time, but it was also during the recession. What I did do in that time is I spent 2 hours a day marketing. I was sitting in a hospital for 3 months, and what did I do in that hospital? Marketing. By the time I got back to work, I was pretty busy, but all that marketing had paid off, so it made up for the 3 months. You got to market like mad, even when you don't have time to. Okay, don't just market when you're quiet. By the time the marketing pays off, it's too late. So another thing about being a successful freelancer is being super organized. You've got to have systems for systems with systems, and they don't have to be complex. They don't have to be high-tech. You don't have to use complicated apps. When I started, I used to use A4 plastic envelopes as job bags, and each one I used to write on with a permanent marker with the client's name, and all their stuff would go in there. And I still do that now, but I do digital ones as well, so that every hard copy one has a digital one on my computer, and it helps to keep stuff together. So it's really simple, but it really, really works. You need to get religious about your timekeeping. If you're going to charge for your time, you need to know how much time you spend. You can either use one of the very cool free apps that are available to help you with this, or just write it down in your moleskin or on your phone. It doesn't need to be complex. You need to be religious about note-taking. Any creative who sits in a meeting with a client and is not taking notes does not deserve the work. You cannot sit in a meeting and not take notes. Firstly, you look unprofessional. Secondly, we're creatives. We need the notes. And thirdly, you're not going to remember the nuances after 3 of those meetings. Okay? T's and C's. You have got to have at least one term and condition on your documentation. And that one, if you're going to choose one, has to be 50% upfront. You have to get a deposit. Otherwise, you've taken all the risk. With a 50% upfront deposit, the risk is equal. It's fair. That's how it should be. I will not get out of bed without a deposit. I will have one free meeting, and every client gets one free meeting, and after that, you will not see me again until I have some money. Because I'm doing this for money. I'm not doing it for fun. It is fun, but that's a perk. I'm doing it to feed a whole bunch of people. Okay? And go to the hairdresser. Yeah. No. So the question here was, do I cap the deposit at a certain amount? So if the job is 30,000, they have to pay 15,000 upfront. If the job is 2,000, they have to pay 1,000 upfront. I don't care what size the deposit is, as long as it's a 50% equal risk. And I don't really do less than 2,000 because it doesn't really, So sorry, let me go back a bit. How am I doing for time? T's and C's. So the critical one, the one you absolutely have to have, is 50% upfront. 50% upfront. The other critical ones are things like, what can they do with your creative? Do they own it? Can they put it anywhere? Can they on-sell it? Can they syndicate it? Other things are, what about spec work and kill fees, which I'll talk about in a second. So at which point can they say, no more, we're not giving you any more money, stop? At which point can the cost estimate expand beyond the scope initially quoted? So have you agreed this? How many rounds of changes do they get? I've got something called a reinstatement fee, which means that if I submit copy to a client and they sit on it for 4 months, they can't come back to me 4 months later and ask for changes, because by then I've forgotten them and the work. They've got 14 working days. If they need longer, they can ask me in writing, and I'll probably do it without charging a reinstatement fee. But I threaten the reinstatement fee to dissuade them from waiting 4 months before giving me feedback. So I often don't actually, hope there are no clients listening, I often don't actually impose this one, but it's there, and they have to sign it before I'll do anything. So your T's and C's should contain basic stuff like whether or not you charge VAT, whether travel is included, whether admin is included, the deposit, who the IP belongs to. This is important. Do they own the photographs? Do you own? Who owns them? So in my case, as soon as the bill is settled in full, I no longer own the copyright. It belongs to the client. But that's a copy-specific thing, so you need to decide based on your industry. Other things that we have on the T's and C's are what I don't do. So one of the things that is cropping up now, and has never happened to me before in 13 years, is customers will take the copy and say, this is fantastic, thank you, but where's the design? I don't do design. I've never done design. I'm not a designer. It doesn't say design anywhere, ever, and never has. What are you talking about, client? Client thinks they're going to get a laid-out brochure with images and stuff. Why? I don't do that. So you need to clarify what. Often clients don't really know what we do as creatives. You need to clarify whether what you're doing is proofreading, editing, copywriting, graphic design, image sourcing, layout. What exactly is it? Customers also don't know the difference between web design and web development. So they think you're doing a logo, but you're actually building a back end. You've got to be quite specific in your T's and C's about what you actually do. Some of my other stuff, my terms are COD. So once you've signed off your work, I'm going to invoice you, and payment is due immediately, not 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, never. Now, immediately. It says that, everyone ignores it, so most clients ask for 30 days, but they sign the thing saying COD. And then, of course, you chase money forever. But that's a different story. Right. Tax. Whew, I'm getting out of breath. I'm trying to give you guys value. I'm going to fill my full hour. Tax, if you're a freelancer, then you are probably a provisional taxpayer, which means that you pay tax twice a year, February and August. You need to find a bookkeeper who understands freelancing. Otherwise, you're going to get lumbered with all sorts of shit that you can't deduct. Whereas if you're a freelancer, you can deduct everything. Parking at the Sandton Convention Center, deductible. Taking a customer out for lunch and interviewing him, deductible. Everything is deductible, and you need to know upfront what you can claim back, because we don't get money back from the tax man. We pay him in, which sucks. If you have an access bond, here's a free tip. If you have an access bond, use that as your tax pocket. So put all your money in there, and then when tax time comes and SARS says, hello, can I have a top-up payment, freelancer? It's sitting in your access bond, where you've benefited from the interest all this time. Okay, they don't give them out anymore, so you can only do it if you already have one. Tech. Use the tech that works for you, but don't feel like you need to be a tech genius to freelance. You don't. I'm not. I use 1 or 2 apps that I rely on and that I could not live without, and the rest, So the ones that I absolutely love are Sana, which is a project management system, absolutely brilliant and free, and the other is Wave. I use Wave for all my quoting and invoicing, and I could not live without it. It integrates with my bank account, so it knows when I get paid. It's amazing. Both free, both amazing, couldn't live without them. Find the tech that works for you, but don't feel like you have to have everything. Use your dead time. Any time spent waiting, queuing, standing at the pharmacy, standing in line at Home Affairs, every free second you have should be spent marketing. That's what dead time is for. And you can achieve a hell of a lot in 20 minutes. Never say, I'm just a graphic designer. Oh, I'm just a copywriter. Oh, I'm just an editor. No, you aren't. You're a small business owner who specializes in copywriting. Start using language that uplifts what you do and doesn't undermine what you do. I'm just a blogger. No, you're a small business owner who blogs. Okay, start using language that is good for your brand. Kill fees. So I hate them. You need to decide upfront based on where you are in your career if you're in or out. I'm out. I don't do kill fees. What's a kill fee? So let's say that a client engages me to do a website, and they pay me 50% upfront, and then for whatever reason there's a management shift or a strategic direction change or something changes in their business, and for whatever reason the person who was driving the project on their side no longer wants to do it. Tiffany, how much do we have to pay you to kill the project? No. It doesn't work like that. You don't get to kill the project. So you pay for the work that I've done. If I'm 50% of the way in, then I'll take the deposit and we can end it there, but you don't get anything. You don't get like rough drafts. Okay, I don't do kill fees. I did ask my colleagues about this once, and they said kill fees are very useful at the beginning of a project. So before you've both started working on something, but time has been spent, a kill fee can be useful so that you're both happy. But for me, once I've started a project, I don't want to hear about kill fees. You can't take the finished work and then decide you're not going to use it and then offer me half. Once you've taken it, you pay me for it, all the money, whether you use it or not. And I'm very hardcore about this because I've invested 100% of the time that I quoted for. Okay? You can decide how you want to be about this. You don't have to be as hardcore as I am, or you can treat it on a case-by-case basis. It's totally up to you. But work it out in advance so that when you're confronted with this question, you have an answer. It's also important to look at the timing. Are they asking for a kill fee at the end or at the beginning? Those are very different. And you may need to, if it's a regular client who's asking you to kill some work and you've worked with them for years or you want lots of work from them and the relationship's really good, you may need to make exceptions based on those relationships. So I love using this one. That's a guy who's just come from the dentist. And why do I use the dentist analogy? Because I work like a dentist, which is why I say no to kill fees. You can't ask me to clean your teeth and then change the scope of the project and ask me for braces and think that it's the same price. Okay? That doesn't happen. I'm a dentist. You pay for what you get. You can't pay me in apples, chewing gum, or promises of exposure, because I can't eat exposure. I also don't want a profit share in your business. So don't say to me, please write this copy for our proposal, and if we get the money, you can have a percentage. I don't want a percentage, I want my money. You can't get cold teeth halfway through a clean and leave without settling up. I sold you the time, and I can't sell it to anyone else. Give me my money. So can you see there's a punchline here, which is, give me my money. I sound like such a capitalist. It's fantastic. You can't decide you don't like the result once it's done and then offer me a portion of the rate. The work is done. We agreed beforehand on the scope. Here it is. And unless you've asked for reasonable changes, which I allow, one set, give me the money. Now, sometimes you may want to, or decide to, or have to, or choose to give a freebie. But I've got some rules, unsurprisingly, for that as well. I'm going to give you reasons to say no, and then I'm going to give you reasons to say yes. Reasons to say no. On principle, freebies are bullshit. Why would I give you work for free just because you're asking? You need to have a really, really good reason to give a freebie. It's also a bottomless pit, because once you've given a customer or client one freebie, then they're never going to associate you with money in future. So you're never going to be able to get money out of them, or you're never going to get what you deserve. It's also cheeky as hell to ask somebody whose service or product is themselves to give that away for nothing. We would never ask, sort of go into Woolworths and say, won't you just fill up my trolley for nothing because I'm having a really bad month? And also, you can't eat exposure. My kids' school is not going to take payment in my exposure. They want actual money, which means I need actual money from my clients. So those are the reasons to say no. Here are the reasons to say yes. Sometimes if you're starting out and you do need exposure more than money, or you need exposure in order to build credibility for paying clients, you may want to give a freebie. Don't just give the freebie, you need a testimonial in return, otherwise the freebie's worth nothing. It builds reputations. So if you're an unknown quantity, you may have to do the odd freebie, especially high-profile freebies, in order for people to know that you deliver, that you're reliable, that you're professional, and that you have the abilities you claim to have. So again, never just give the freebie. You need a testimonial, letter of reference, something on your website. You need to be able to use their logo on your marketing, whatever it might be. You can give it a freebie strategically. So I have regulars who have used me on and off for 13 years, not on retainer, but every couple of months they'll need something. If they need a half an hour's work here or an hour's work there, I'll chuck it in because they've given me 13 years of work. Or if a client's given me a huge job and then 4 months later they want me to come in and talk to their people for an hour, I'll do it because they gave me a huge amount of work. And that's not just a freebie, it's a goodwill freebie. You've got to name it, you've got to label it. So the customer knows you don't just dish out your work to anyone who asks. And then goodwill gestures work really well as well. So you can be giving a little bit of your time away for a good cause. So this year, for the first time in years, I'm doing free work for NGOs. I'm speaking for free at all sorts of things. I'm representing associations and organizations I believe in for nothing. And I'm doing it because I feel like it's time to give back a little bit. And because I have a little bit more time than I used to, I'm trying to sort of develop a sense of generosity in the way that I engage. So for me, I'm doing it out of goodwill, but it feels nice. Okay, and it's fun. Free work is often more fun than paid work. So there's that last one. It can be fun. Again, I said this earlier, but if there's an industry you're dying to get into or a client you've been dying to work for, you may want to contact them and say, listen, I'll do something for you for free, and if you like it, give me the actual work. This is risky because they may not associate with you with money moving forward, but sometimes it pays off. I've done this before, and it's paid off for me more than it hasn't. So you decide what you want to do with that. But if you're giving a discount, and I was chatting to Alfred about this before I started, never just sommer give one. You've got to give a reason for it. It's got to be a volume discount because they've given you a ton of work, a regulars discount because they've been using you for a long time, an NGO or NPO discount. If you're going to give one of these, the client needs to be an actual NPO. It can't just not make a profit because that's a shit business. So I get this a lot. They'll say, can we have your NPO discount? And I'll say, yeah, I'll think about it. What is your NPO number? No, we're not an NPO. Okay, then you're just a bad business person. So if you're going to give a freebie or a discount, always give a reason. You're getting my goodwill discount, my volume discount, whatever it is, give it a name. I have a rule with friends and family, and that is that I either work totally for free or I hand the work to someone else. I don't do family and friends discounts because they get awkward and relationships end that way. So it's either a complete freebie on the understanding that any work I do for them in the future is completely free, which cuts down on how much they ask, thank God, or I outsource it to a really good service provider for money. But you need a policy on this because it is going to happen. Marketing in a recession. Leverage the vacuum. There is a vacuum caused by scared companies and scared freelancers rushing back into full-time employment or stopping freelancing. You need to leverage that vacuum if you're brave. Because the companies that survive the recession, which is going to go on and off for years, that's how the world works, will be those that dived into the vacuum left by scared companies. Okay, so don't just exit the market. Think about it very hard before you try and go back into full-time employment. One of the perks of freelancing is that you are unretrenchable. Nobody can fire you if you work for yourself. On that note, retainers. So this isn't in here. Until recently, I accepted no retainers ever. I hated them, and I didn't like anyone to own me or own a portion of me. A couple of years ago, I started accepting retainers, and I made an absolutely rookie error. I accepted 4 retainers from one company. And then what happened? My contact left. All 4 projects were canned, and I lost 4 retainers in 1 month. Gone, bang, bye-bye, 20% of my income disappeared. Wasn't overnight, I saw it coming. And I broke my own rule, which is never accept more than 20% of your income from one client. So if you're going to take retainers, get 4 or 5 and get them from different companies, not all the same contact person. I broke my own rule, and it burnt me. When the going gets tough, remember to market in every gap. I've said this before, any dead time. Pick up the slack left by others. So you're going to find lots of shit service providers out there. Fix the shit work done by other people, and the client will love you for life. Please be very wary of bullshit. Clients that ask for recession discounts, clients that say we never pay more than R1.50 a word. Well, I never work for less than R3.50, so, you know. Just be wary of bullshit because people are going to try their luck a lot. It happens with me, and you sometimes need to just know at which point you say, sorry, I'm really sorry, and here's the wording, you can write this down. It is impossible for me to help you with this. Not I don't want to, not I can't. I'm sorry, it is impossible for me to help you with this. Never be too available. So never, if a client phones and says, when can I see you, never say today. Okay? You don't have to be as ridiculous as me. I need like a week or two of notice. But like, guys, pretend to be busy. 3 or 4 days or 5 days, goodness. You would never be available for a date, like a booty call overnight. Why would you do it for a client? What are you doing? Well, nothing, waiting for you to phone me with my finger in my nose. No. Never be too available. Never let them smell your desperation. So always pretend that you are happy and busy all the time, even if you are starving, happy and busy. And never be a schnorrer. And schnorrer is a Yiddish word which means a miser. So if you are approaching a customer or client to give you work, you buy the coffee. You pay for the coffee for somebody who's giving you free advice. Don't be a schnorrer. Don't say, I've had customers, contacts from associations do this. They'll say, Tiffany, can I have an hour of your time to pick your brain for freelancing advice? And then they let me pay. Like, it's not really about the money, but don't be a schnorrer. Be the service provider who always picks up the tab for the coffee. It doesn't have to be, you know, a 5-course meal, but if there's a cappuccino, you can afford the 22 Rand 50. Just makes you look like a business owner. Yes. What do I mean by pick up the slack of others? Yeah. So when I say pick up other people's slack, what I mean is they're going to be service providers who do your job badly, or more cheaply than you do, but worse than you would have done it. And very often you'll find that you need to redo that work because the client was unhappy with the work done by the person cheaper than you. Don't be too proud to redo the work done badly before you were there. Ho fuss until it passes. Recessions do pass. You need to just bite your tongue. There is ebb and flow in the creative industry, and it will hopefully do this, which over the last 13 years certainly has done for me. So, general marketing advice, diversify. So I've said to you, find your niche, and that's true. But within your niche, even if it's a very specialized one, diversify. Work for customers that are slightly different to each other. Keeps it interesting for you. Try social. Don't be scared of social. I have a whole talk on this. But don't be scared of social because it does so much more good than harm. Trim the scope. So if a customer comes to you and says, we only have 5 grand and you really want to do the work, say, okay, for 5 grand, I can do X minus this. So trim what you would have done for 10 to half and then do it for 5. So a customer can't come to me and say, we've only got 5 grand, can you do 10 grand's worth of work? No, I can do 5 grand's worth of work, and these are the things that you'll lose in return for shaving the 5 grand. And cut your costs. So my husband and I went on a big family financial audit in January and found all sorts of things we were paying for that we didn't need or that we could afford to say goodbye to. And I think that that's quite a healthy thing to do, even if you're not financially troubled, because you'll find all sorts of things that you didn't mind paying for 2 years ago when the going was exceptionally good, or that you just can't justify anymore. So don't be shy to look at your costs, especially as a freelancer, and say, do I really need to pay for a gig of Google storage every year? I don't know. Do I? Think about it. Question. Try social means use social media to market yourself, and don't be scared of it. Social creates networks with people you would never have seen otherwise, and they would never have seen you, and it's a good opportunity for creatives to put their actual stuff out there. I get probably 25% of my work from social, just from being credible online, and about 25% of it from word of mouth, and the rest from my website, which people find via social. So it pays off. Shave the deliverables if the client has a small budget. If you're a freelancer and you don't belong to SAFREA, you need to literally do that right now. You need to email admin@safrea.co.za and ask for, well, I haven't done this in 12 years, but ask for whatever it takes to be a member. It's 550 Rand a year. It's completely negligible, and the value you get in your first month of being able to ask 400 freelancers questions for nothing basically pays for itself. So just do it. It's benefited me in so many incalculable ways over the last few years that's a whole nother talk on its own. And SAFREA is not paying me to say this. I don't represent SAFREA. I don't work for SAFREA. They just said, would I come and talk for free about freelancing? And I said yes, and they didn't even ask me to mention them, and I'm doing it because I really, really believe in SAFREA and organizations like SAFREA, which is staffed by volunteers and does a huge amount of awesome stuff for freelancers who have no one else to represent them. So, there's SAFREA. I think we may have time for questions. Alfred, how am I doing? 5 minutes for questions. Yep. Swaps, trade exchanges, with clients or with other service providers? With clients. So, yes, I've done this before, but only when, so the question was, would you do work in exchange for freebies from the client? Depends on what they have to offer. If it's something you really want, like travel clients, do it, totes. But remember, you can't eat swaps. So I would set aside a proportion of your work that you're prepared to, or a proportion of your monthly allocation of hours that you're prepared to give to trade exchanges, and beyond that, no. But you need to decide how badly you need the money or the holiday or the car or whatever it is. I don't do it much anymore, but I used to, and I've had some epic experiences based on trade exchanges. Yeah.
Do you think it's important to register the business name?
No, I'm so glad you asked me this. Do I think it's important to register a business name? No. What on earth for? You're a provisional taxpayer, so you don't need to be a PTY limited. You need to be a sole prop, trading as whatever your business name is. The only thing you need to register is a domain name and an email address that isn't sexybabe at Google or Gmail. But no, you don't need a PTY. The CCs are being phased out anyway, and those come with all sorts of complications that freelancers cannot afford and that are unsustainable, like audits and all of that stuff. So no, you definitely don't need to register anything with any, entity. Yeah. Do I put a cap on the number of clients that I take every year? No, and I'll tell you why. Because there might be a 50 grand job and then like a 2 grand job. So I couldn't put a cap on the number of clients because the job sizes are so different. But what I do is I put a cap on the number of freebies I do every year. So I decide in advance how much pro bono work I can afford to do, and once I've committed to that, that's it till the following year. So I do that for free work, but for clients, no, because one client might keep me busy for 2 days or 2 months. It's hard to know going in. And even though I've been doing this for a long time, it's between 10 and 20 jobs a month of different sizes every month. Thanks, everybody.